Evaluating it while it was drying, there's like a million changes that I want to make. And I'm not playing. But I know that there's only so many hours in the day and you guys have things that you want to do. So I'm going to try not to take too long. But I'm going to take a yellow poster paint because it has some opacity to it. Because I want to draw out some lighter strands of hair. Now I don't want them to stop so abruptly. So I'm just going to kind of soften them a little bit, and then I'm going to add some little sections and blend those as well, which will hopefully help to make the little strands that I've added make sense. So this is kind of, you know, similar to what we would do with the skin. But we're just doing it here in the hair instead. And I'm going to do some of this, you know, cooler yellow over onto this side as well, just because there are going to be highlights and lowlights no matter what. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this really dark brown to build just a few sections that are kind of a rich, deep, dark color. Paper's a little warped right there, so it's kind of hard to get it to go up and go over that little hump that I created with this oversaturating the paper. So anytime you put marker down, you can, for the most part, run your finger back over it and soften it and blend it a little bit. Unless you hit a spot where you neglected to get good coverage with your matte medium, that particular layer, and I probably should have said more about it at the time that I created it, that layer can be really important, because if you notice that you end up having areas where color like really immediately soaks in, and then areas around it where color doesn't soak in at all, that's what that's a result of, is not getting a good coat. Even if you have to do, like I did, like 2 or 3 layers of it, as long as you're smoothing it out with a card, you can do quite a few layers, because that way you eliminate as much of the risk of completely missing an area and having raw paper. And if you're putting something like an India ink down to raw paper, it's going to soak in immediately. So I want to darken this side up because I think it's too light over here, which I believe that's part and parcel because I put that blue down. So I am going to bring some of that blue in here in a minute. That was one of the things that kind of popped up at me when I was looking at it. And then another thing is, I feel like I let the hair sort of fade away over here down at the bottom. So I'm going to put some darker hair down there. Okay, so I'm going to go into that really deep blue over on sort of this side of the neck, kind of similar to what I did on this side. And I'm just going to really kind of darken the shadows up down here. And if I get a little bit of it on the face, that's fine, because that will, you know, help integrate the shadows together into the face and the hair. So the same thing like I did that with the outer background, you can do that with the face itself. Let's see. And then for this side over here, I felt like it went a little too cool down there. So I'm actually going to try to get as much of this color off as I can. And then I'm actually going to go to an orange, I think. We'll see if I like the orange. So I've got an orange Crayola. And I'm actually going to put some of that color down and then immediately sort of start blending it around, because orange and blue are going to make a brown, so it's not going to look unnatural to add that in. And I'm actually going to, oops, see, now that I didn't want to do. I'm going to do soften up the entire side and warm up the entire side of the face up here. Now you can see here I'm rubbing really, really harsh, and I actually rubbed away a little bit of the color. I made it a lot lighter. That's what I meant by you have to make good choices once you really get into having a lot of layers, and that just proved to you right there that I'm nowhere near, remotely near perfect, because I didn't make a very good choice at that moment. But thankfully I was able to wipe it right off, so it's not, you know, something to get, you know, cry about or anything. Not that I would cry about anything that I did in my art journal. Let's see. Okay, so final thoughts for anyone who feels like this stuff should be softer. I'm going to highly recommend that you buy either this Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen White number 101, or you get your hands on a couple of the white permapaque opaque pigment markers from Sakura. I think it's interesting that I hated this marker the first time I tried to use it because I expected it to be the equivalent of this, and I was like, holy cow, is this thing dried out? Because there was like practically nothing coming out of it, and I hated it. I almost threw the thing away. But over time, as I started working with other mediums and different stuff like that, I found that this is an amazing transparent light layer. So in other words, when you need to lighten something and you need to do it in a very soft way, this is an awesome tool to use. This one is kind of in between. They kind of rate like this, really, really light. Pretty transparent, even though it's sold as opaque, and then really, really opaque. So there's kind of a range. And then I do have like the Uniposca, like this equivalent of this, but in white, and it is the same as this. So those are like, you know, total dupes of each other. The only thing you have to remember before you start to use this for skin is that when you use it with a different color, it picks up that color. So like right now, it's really got a lot of like red or something, pink or something on it. Probably because I use it to do that very thing a lot. But either way, you have to get it all cleaned off. And in the process of getting it cleaned off, you often take out all the ink that's on the end, so then you have to stop and wait for it to sort of gain more ink on the end of it. Same thing happens with this one. It's, you know, either way. So I kind of use them sort of interchangeably, and I love this exactly as it is. I would stop right here and be very happy, but I know that some of you might not be, so I'm going to give you this kind of alternative viewpoint or whatever. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bring the camera down. I'm going to do it manually, so bear with me. But I'm going to bring the camera down, and let's hope I don't forget to bring it back up. But as I kind of want to show you sort of a close-up of what goes on. You can't really just hit one area. If you try to just do one area, you're going to leave a pretty heavy noticeable line. So I try to start in like the lighter area, and then I go over the entire thing. So like I'm picking up pink at this point because there was pink there. So if I try to go back onto the white right now, it's gonna be pink. Like I'll show you right here. See how it's white it is right there? See what I ended up with? Because you're picking up color. So I'm gonna wipe this off really super quick, blend that away. And then again, I'm gonna use this to kind of soften it. But every time I stop or I wanna change to another area, I have to kind of rub the built up color off of it. Now you can do great, beautiful blending as well with it. And if you need to soften an area that you already did, you just put color back over it and then gently burnish it to blend it, burnish it around. It is going to be slightly duller than the actual white of the paper, so keep that in mind. If you've got really bright white areas that have really like no color in them, you start putting this beside it, it's going to be a different color. Oops. You're going to get a definite color change difference there. So that's something you need to keep in mind. But consequently, or consecutive is the word I want. Consecutive layers of this will really soften what you have. So like I'm going to wipe that off. I'm going to hit the really white areas. Then I'm going to slowly start putting that into the darker areas. And now I'm going to rub it off again. And while it's still kind of damp, I'm going to be really super gentle and kind of try to mix it. You can't wait too long because this stuff dries pretty quickly. So make sure it's cleaned off. Get another little section where I've added this. Gently, Christy, gently spread that around. So you can see how it really sort of softened that area up. So over here we'll go again because it's still kind of harsh right there. Super soft, gentle, circular sort of blending. And then you just kind of need to let it dry for a minute. I usually, use that time to wipe my marker back off again and to wipe my fingers off as well. So I'm not going to go any further, but you can just keep doing that. You can just keep doing layers. Here's the key. You have to let it dry. If you put it down and then you immediately rub back over, you're actually going to start rubbing it away. So you need to put a layer down, blend it however you want with gentle pressure, and then let it dry. And then when you put the next layer on, you don't want to dig. You just want to rub it over the surface lightly, spread it, let it dry. So and those are things that you don't even need me to tell you because eventually you would figure it out. I'm just kind of giving you that sort of little advantage that you get from a teacher, which is I'm telling you what I already learned. So in other words, I made the mistake, and then now I get to share it with you without you having to make the mistake. Some of you will still have to make the mistake. I still have to make mistakes. Teachers try, I take classes all the time, and teachers tell me, don't do this because blah, blah, blah. I do it anyway. Or I see it and I go, oh, that's a really great, tip. And then I forget it. And then I make the mistake and I'm like, oh, that's right. The teacher told me not to do that, So we're not, none of us are some of us anyway are going to make our own mistakes so that we can learn our lessons. You're like teenagers, no? Now this is the gel. Again, I told you about the gel markers because they dry lighter. So like right here, you can see how it dried like almost to like a white finish. It takes a long time for it to dry though. It's not an instantaneous, even like the Sakura, which ones are they? The souffle pens, how they dry more opaque? They dry fat. They become dry and opaque faster than these little gel ones do. But all I want to do is I kind of want to just tap some little like lines, circles, shapes. I don't know what they are. I don't like go for a specific shape as much as I just go for some color. And I don't know, can you see maybe where it's wet? Let's see if I can get it to hit in the light. There we go. So you can kind of see there where the darker little lines are. That's what I just put down there. But when it's completely dry, they'll actually be lighter areas. And you can almost start to see it happening there. Come on, focus, focus. See how over the pupil it's a little bit lighter now? Yeah, but it does take a while for it to fully dry. So what I'm actually going to do is, let me think really quick. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera back out, and I'm going to hit this whole thing with the heat gun just so I can dry everything up. And then I'll just give you a final close-up, and then we'll be done. If I used a particular marker, and I'm really sorry that I didn't keep track of every single marker I used, but this would be like a list of probably 70 markers if I tried to tell you each one. But if there was at any point a marker that I didn't tell you what it was, and that you really liked the effect or anything like that, the bottom of the classroom, you have a comment section. I pay very close attention to that, and I always respond. I don't always respond on all the variety of different social media websites out there. I don't check them all daily, and sometimes I see something and I make a note to come back, and then I forget. I never forget to come back and answer questions or give feedback to anything that's in the actual classroom comments down there. So if you have a question like a particular marker or anything like that, leave it in the comments. Also, if you can go back in the video, find where it was at, pause it, and tell me the minute-second count, that means I can go and jump right to it and tell me which video. And then I can answer your question a lot faster. If I have to sit and go and try to remember or scroll through 2 or 3 hours worth of video to find that one marker you were asking about, the likelihood I'm gonna get to that right away is probably a lot less than if you tell me exactly where to go and look. And I know that is putting a little bit of a burden on you guys, but that's a lot of markers. So. But I hope you had fun. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you see how you really can use, let me pull this back up. You really can use so many different types of markers together. And it's funny because a lot of what I see is like the marker companies use their marker, you know what I mean? Or they don't even mix their own brands. Like say, Sakura, for instance, I never see them putting out, content or a video where you've mixed a bunch of their different marker products together. Now they probably will go and do it, no? But they should, because, I love this more than I love any of the rest of the marker stuff all on their own. In other words, I love this so much because they're, I'm using everything I've got. I'm just throwing it all out there and then kind of just grabbing out either, my favorites or the one that sort of fits the need I had at that moment. And that makes me a lot happier because I am very much at heart a mixed media artist. So it really kind of scratches that itch, I guess you would say. All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to heat gun this, and I might have to highlight them a little more if they don't brighten up when they dry. All right, so just as I had originally told you that they were really awesome to use over top of black paper, the reason why is, hopefully it'll focus enough, you can see there's a brighter dot where it's over top of the black. It actually looks brighter there than it does over the eye where it ends up looking a little bit darker. So they're really fun to play with, but they're definitely a unique product. So what I do have is I've got a blue poster paint marker, and so I'm going to tap some of that in. Not even sure I'm getting any. Yeah, I am. So I'm going to tap some of that color in, but while it's all still wet, I'm going to use the little tiny bullet tip of the Sakura one, Permapaque. That's not even as bright as I want. I just seem to want really bright white today. I don't think I have, what do I have for fine line? I have an actual paint pen. This is actually an oil-based marker, so I wouldn't recommend this one for under layers. I definitely would recommend this for final layers. Does it have any paint on the end of it? No. These don't work well for me. I have to be honest. I find they separate, the color separates too much. Can't keep them going. I've done this with this marker before because it has blue in it. So I'm just going to kind of add this, but I think I'm getting mostly the oil and not any of the white. Yeah, it's just pure oil at this point. Alright, I'm just making a giant mess over here off to the side, but at least I have finally gotten a little bit of white out of it. So my point to all of this is that once I have all those crazy dots on there, instead of just leaving them to dry that way, I'm just going to kind of mush them. They still look a little dot-like. Let me get that one that doesn't work at all. Just going to kind of mush them around a little bit. Yeah, that was not my most favorite thing. But anyway, now I've got some brighter and some darker highlights, although that whole thing just frustrated me. So I think we're definitely time to be done. Let me see if I can get the entire piece on the camera. Okay, there you go. You'll get an actual printable scanned print of this for you to keep or print out and display, whatever you want to do with it. Tear it up and glue it down. I don't care. It's yours for the keeping. I'll do some little fun sort of close-ups when it decides to stop doing that. The only thing that I kind of was not as, completely happy with was my inability to lighten the blue side of the background to the extent that I wanted it lightened. I did still want it to be much lighter here, but I kind of gave up because it's not about the background for you guys as much as it is learning how to use the markers for the faces. So I gave up, or getting this side darker, which I still didn't feel like I got it. They almost, aren't this, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for taking this class. I hope you had fun. I love teaching this class. I love making faces with markers, and I think this is a really fun style that you can use when you're like traveling and that type of thing, especially if you don't care about your fingers or if you wear gloves, because you don't have to bring any containers of paint. All you have to bring, your paint is basically contained in your marker. So this, a brush and a little bit of water, and you can just have a really good time. Especially if you pre-seal a bunch of papers, go through your journal and gesso it or pre-seal it somehow. You can just have a blast. And obviously, this technique is not just for faces, it's for everything. Flowers, animals, landscapes, whatever. But anyway, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you around on the internet at some point.